They're all stacked high.
It's 6:02, and I appreciate your attention as we call this meeting to order for the Community Reparations Commission. We'll begin with the roll call.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. So I will start roll. Dwayne Barton. Norma Baines.
Why don't you tell Claire getting something to eat?
Renata Conyers. Christopher Gordon.
Here.
Roy Harris.
Here.
Joyce Harrison.
Here.
Shonda Jackson. Kimberly Jones. Moana Little. Tamari Macon.
Here.
Bobette Mays.
Present.
Glenda McDowell.
Here.
Dwight Mullen.
Here.
Mildred Nance Carson. Bernard Oliphant.
Here.
Thomas Priester.
Here.
Renetta Waters. Cece Weston. Dee Williams. MZ Yehuda.
Here.
Keith Young.
Here.
Eric Robertson.
Here.
Tamari Miller.
Here.
Dee Burris.
Here.
Tiffany Debolo.
Here.
Shakiki Giles Baton.
Here.
Osandu McPeters. And Dwayne Richardson.
Here.
Sorry, I thought Miss Norma was here, but that's not her.
According to the roll, we have a quorum. Once again, I'm apologizing for my voice. My granddaughter and her preschool viruses are responsible. I'm giving her full credit. On your agenda, it has chair's remarks, and this is our last meeting for the year. Our next meeting, if you go down to the end of your agenda, is scheduled for January the 9th. So that will be the beginning of 2023. But as it's at the end of the year, I thought it might be appropriate to give you a couple of thoughts to take with you over the holidays. It was put to me by a reporter this afternoon. She said to me that it sounds like you are building the plane as it's flying. And I said to her that that's probably an accurate description, at least that's how I feel about it sometimes. Because many of the things that we are doing here in this room and at our meetings are actually the first time they've been done. Taking the conversation to the depth that we're taking it, the questions we are getting through the surveys that we're addressing, the discussions in your focus areas, those things, those have not all combined together at any time that I know of in this country's history. I think you should be proud of yourself, even though I think many of you have spoken to me individually, several of you, I should say, have spoken to me individually, and expressed concern about the lack of productivity that you have. And I'm saying to you, from a certain perspective, your productivity is to be applauded, and I think it is an anticipation of what is to come in 2023. Don't lose sight of the prize, y'all. Don't lose sight of the prize. It's coming. It's coming. But my question to you that I'd like to leave is simple as this. Suppose it doesn't. Suppose after all this work we are told no. We are not doing reparations. You're calling it something we don't want it to be called. let me remind you of something. Can you imagine in 1950, even 1960, talking to Southern racists about desegregation and the language that should be used for that? Can you imagine them accepting equality of black people at a table of decision makers? What we're doing is unprecedented, and it's going to be resisted, and we are going to be told no. So the second question is not just what do you do when you're told no. The question is, how will we organize when we are told no? Keep it in mind. Keep it in mind. We have more resources even that are sitting at this table, but what's sitting at this table is formidable. Yeah. We have action items. Approval of the agenda, approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seeing no objection, I accept it as unanimous. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So,
Is there a second? Is there a second? Is this been moved and seconded? There's no comments, corrections, and even if there are comments and corrections that you find later, please feel free to introduce them. Let us know. But seeing none now, I accept this as unanimous. Thank you. Thank you. It is 6:09, and at 6:10, we are supposed to be talking about something special. Tell me we're not on time.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
hallelujah.
All right, thank you, Dr. Mullen. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you all for being here. So again, I'm Christine Edwards. I am our project manager for the Community Reparations Commission. And I'm just going to be going over some of our survey data. I'm not going to be reviewing it in detail because you do have this information printed in your packet. I appreciate y'all encouraging one another to go ahead and submit your responses on the survey. We did get 18 responses on the survey from the November 7th meeting. Overwhelmingly, for question 1, did you have the opportunity to express your ideas, thoughts, and opinions? 17 out of the 18 expressed yes to that question. When asked to rate the overall assessment of the November 7th meeting, overwhelmingly folks responded very satisfied and moderately satisfied. And we also have some open-ended comments from question 3 and 4. What did you like most about the November 7th meeting and what needed improvement? And so I think last time I went through the comments, because we only had 8 of them, but we have quite a few more comments. But that's a good thing, because I want you to know that we are reading these comments and we're digesting them and we're doing our best to really respond to them in a really direct manner. So I want you all to please review those and just know that we are going to be more productive as a group and more responsive from the areas that I can manage directly. For example, making sure that we get agendas out to you ahead of time so that you can review materials and getting those updates to you shortly after our meetings so that you can stay up to date on everything that's needed. All right.
So, I'm not sure, how many people had a chance to read the survey, the surveys and the survey results by a show of hands? Can I see how many people on the commission had the opportunity to read the survey results? So, there were one thing is we are, as Christine just stated, reading the surveys. And we are responding to the surveys. And the success of this process is our response and how we respond and how we react to what's going on in the surveys. The surveys are super important. So if you haven't been completing them, please do, because everybody's opinion on this process is valuable. Y'all are a big part of what's making this move. Y'all are a deep part. So I definitely want more people to participate. We did have a comment that that was, a little unsettling. Very much so unsettling, to us as a commission. Because one thing is, everybody on this commission brings a skill set. Everybody brings knowledge, skills, and experience. Nobody on here is without any of those things. And so, we have to address it, and we have to address it as a commission. Now, this was a comment that probably could have been handled in our follow-up meetings or with the leadership team of this process, but this is a commission decision. And we need to know how to address these type of things if it were to happen again. But it's something like, this is new, so those processes haven't been created. And so this is an opportunity for us to create that process for which we handle these type of situations, because everyone is valuable. Nobody is more valuable than the other person at this table. They're not respected to our roles in this process or anything. We are all on the same level playing field. And so, we have been talking, and we wanted to bring this to the commission because we really wanted to ask, we want to talk to the commission about what do you do in this type of situation when someone has been physically confrontational with another commission member for whatever reason. How do we respond to that as a commission? What are y'all thoughts? What is the best process? What's the best next steps for responding to that type of behavior by another commission member?
Just thinking in terms of the protocols of safety. So if that is going against the protocols of safety, then it has, I think, consensus thinking even, I don't want to say, if it goes against safety protocols, then it should be handled transparently.
Exactly. And so everybody deserves to feel safe. We don't always go, that's not one thing, we not always go agree on everything in this process. But we gotta be in a place where we can at least have a civilized conversation and not feel a need for verbal or physical violence. It's gotta be a common level of respect. That's the bottom basis. That was some of the rules and things when we was talking about an initiation of this process. It's like, what are our common grounds? That was the basis. And so when we are dealing with a situation like this, I really would love to hear from the commission on what is the response. And if you want to know the specific comment, it's question 4 of the survey. And it is the third from the bottom. And I'll give y'all a second to read that.
So after reading that,
Yeah.
while they're reading it, I'd like to make a comment that I think that we were all put on this commission for a purpose. And when no one is in a position on this commission to even physically or, just verbally say something to someone because we're not in that role. If there's something that should be addressed on that scale, that should be something that the city and the county should be a part of. As a commission, we don't have the right to judge people or to say anything about anybody or to make anybody feel bad. So I'm right now, I'm feeling a certain way. I'm feeling a certain hurt because that's not what we're supposed to be about. And the one thing that I know that we're being tasked with doing this is that a lot of times we're set up to fail. We're not supposed to be, but haven't gotten this far. And we know there are gonna be challenges. But if we can't work with each other, then maybe it's not a place or a forum for someone if they feel like that they can take on that kind of position, because it's gonna as we go forward, it's gonna be more and more, and it's gonna get more serious. So if we can't address it and have something to say about it now, that it will not ever happen again, then we're failing as a commission. So I think that would be something that maybe the city and the county would probably give us some more input on how to handle that, because I'm really just despaired about this. I'm just, it didn't happen to me and I wasn't there and I don't know what it was, but to make anybody in this room feel like that they're less than, everybody's here for a purpose and we all have a voice and we all have opinions, but we can't knock each other down. So, it's already out there, the media already knows it, we're just talking about what we already know has happened. But I think that's a further discussion for you and the chair to talk to, along with the city and the county and maybe the lawyers, because that's just something that just cannot happen. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
And I have to agree with Bobette on a lot of this. Safety is a big deal. You see the violence happening in this country now. You don't want to feel like you're going into another space that's not safe. We're here for a reason to do something very productive. And if we're going to do something productive, we need to feel like we're in a safe space to do that. And again, I'm with you. I have no clue with, all that. So this is me speaking, and if it were me and if it were my business that I had and I was doing that and something happened with 2 employees, there would be reprimanding happening immediately. It would not have to wait until the end of the month or the first of the month or whatever. But a reprimand happens when the event happens, so that it does not occur again. And that we know that when it goes out and somebody else hears it in the public or whatever, it has already been handled and it is put to the shelf. So,
I know you can't say the name or any, but the survey's anonymous, right? But you can see the name who does the survey? You can't, so you don't know who really wrote this, but somebody.
Well, we know the incident.
I know about the incident, but not for which business.
Yeah, we know about the incident,
Okay.
but I think we struggle, me and Dr. Mullins, we've been struggling with this for the last week, just trying to figure out how to handle this and how to bring this to the commission. So one thing, it is public. This survey goes out publicly with all of our public documents that go out. And so it is public, and so the address has to be public, you know what I mean? And that's the reality, because one thing is, we struggle with, what kind of look is that for us as a commission? If this goes out and we fix it in private and nobody knows, then it's looking like we didn't do anything to respond to something that is so public and is harmful to the work that we're doing. And so that's why we bring it to the full commission, because it should be a conversation of all of us. It shouldn't be just me and him making the decision or working with the city to make a decision on the behalf of this commission. This should be a commission conversation where we're able to have this conversation, and then we can go back with them like you heard from the commission. You see how the commission is feeling about this, and we want to move in what the commission wants us to do versus us doing it. That's.
So my second question is, when this came out like this, and have you guys exactly talked to the person? Brought anything up to them?
So we found out specifics Friday?
It's very late.
Friday, the specific name. We seen the survey, but we didn't have the specific details until Thursday, last week. And so, we was late getting the information. We needed to respond, to speak to anybody, but I was able to speak to one side of it, just not the other side.
And my response has been that I come at it from a different angle. My response has been that Black organizations implode. We often are not exploded and attacked and destroyed. We often crumble from within because of tensions that can't be resolved. And so my point was that we should take this survey point and use it to ask our facilitators and legal to construct a code of conduct and the ramifications if it's broken. And to come bring that back to you.
But does that solve the issue that you have at hand?
No, that's what I said, we
Yeah,
totally different.
see,
So, yeah.
So,
for me, I feel like, I feel the unsafe mode of this. Because if this happens with one person and the person, whoever is still around the room or whatever, you're still in the unsafe mode. Okay? So, again, I go back to all the violence in this country today, is that you don't ever know when another person may explode or what will happen. So you need to remove whatever tensions there are there. We as, and I have to go here, we as Black people have to learn how to control our emotions to a point to where it is a professional way. And if we are all sitting around this room and we are professional, we should not be in that mode. We should be doing the task at hand. And the task at hand is dealing with reparations. And we're not doing that if we're having this confrontational stuff happening in committees. If it happened in one committee, it could happen in another. So what are you going to do? Again, I feel that unsafe mode of what will happen next.
And that brings to the point about how many people will stay on the commission now. You know, people are, I will stay, but you know, with the feelings going on like that, is it safe to come, like you said, is it still safe to come?
But I think, let me say this, I think that, we're trying to absorb this because we've just seen it.
Yeah.
And I think that, the responsibility of us as a commission, that we have to address this issue, but something else has to be in place so that it will be known from the very beginning that it cannot happen again. Because if anybody felt that way, that's sad, because we're all adults. We're all adults. We're all in different spaces where we are professionals. And we don't, if you were in a job, this would not be acceptable. So I say to Dr. Mullins and to you, we've already told you how it makes us feel unsafe. It makes us feel like if it can happen once, it can happen again. Because I don't know what gave the person, however this happened, the right to be able to speak to someone else like that. But that means that's not acceptable in this group. So something has to be done outside to get, and to go forward so it can never happen again. And that's the only thing. I do appreciate the fact that you brought it to us. I do appreciate the fact, because I'm like, I didn't know. I think most of the people in this room, we had no knowledge of that this had happened. The only people that know are probably the ones that were either in the room, or the person that did it, or the person that received it. So I think that the responsibility is that you correct this now, but put something in place that it never happens again. Because we don't want people to say they cannot say anything because they're afraid that somebody's gonna attack them on something that they say.
This is not a background incident.
Tiffany? I just wanted to make 2 points. The first point is that we're here to undo the harm. And so just recognizing the harm that may come up in this space. And then I wanted to make a note on the statement of commitment and conduct. It references that I therefore voluntarily agree to make these commitments in their entirety and further agree that I will resign my commissionership immediately if I fail to meet these requirements.
Right?
And I think being safe is the most important thing.
You got your answer? Yep.
All right, well, thank y'all so much.
Can I just add one?
Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Sorry. When I leave the meeting, like when I do the surveys, when they just ask for improvement, it always comes back to me about having a work session. And I think that's why, like, some of us may feel like we're not moving forward fast enough, because everything has to be hashed out within these 2 hours. Like the old news, new news, like everything like changes to the project manager. Like everything has to be done within these 2 hours. And like right now, we can spend another 45 minutes talking about what transpired a couple of weeks ago or last month. I just feel like we need like a work session, so we can communicate, like a public email or public post to the social media. Like, that's not a work session for us. Like, we're finding out some of this stuff like at the same time the public. And I just feel like a work session will allow us to get beyond some of these issues that we have, so we can just address what we're here for. We're spending a lot of time just finding out and addressing new news, catching everybody up to date. That's like the first 30, 45 minutes of the meeting. I sit on a lot of boards, not all, but a lot of boards have closed work sessions. But I'm not sure how the structure go with the law and, you know, the transparency thing. I'm like, can we just have that? Because we're here streaming as if we're, like, we don't have it together. But they don't realize that this is the only time we meet. We're not allowed to meet to even follow up after tonight's meeting. So it just kind of, that part just kind of gets a little frustrating from time to time, because we gotta wait until January the 9th to unpack all this meeting here tonight.
So, I think that's, a lot of that work goes on in the, focus groups as well, and a lot of those conversations. But in the means of this one, this had to hit news, it hit whatever it hit, you know what I mean? This is public information. And so for those who don't read the packets when they sent out, this was the time for us to have that conversation, because we needed that conversation. And I understand exactly what you're saying, but in the means of time, I am gonna move forward because I do hear you. You know what I mean? And so the next item on our agenda is old business. Immediate recommendation, stop the harm, Dr. Moses.
It feels odd promoting your own recommendation. I wrote this, and I'm gonna ask Dawn to lead the conversation on that. It feels odd.
So at the last meeting, we all got the recommendation from Dr. Moses on the first recommendation of stopping the harm. And so it's kind of cool that when I met with the economic development focus group, that was something that came out in that focus group. It's like, how are we here making solutions when the harms continue? Like, how are we trying to fix something while the harms are still existing and are continually being perpetuated against Black people? You know what I mean? So I'm going to read this. This is now up for vote. It was presented at the last meeting, so it's now up for vote from the commission at this meeting. Stop the harm, the cessation of assurance and guarantee of no repetition of institutional processes that lead to racially disparate outcomes. Asheville City and Buncombe County Board of Commission resolved in 2020 that they were responsible and complicit in the actions that injured African Americans. As the Reparations Commission formulates recommendations that will address injuries that have resulted in disparate outcomes in education, health and wellness, housing, economic development, and justice, it is strongly recommended that the city and county cease harms that continue to injure and in turn intensify disparities. It is also recommended that assurances be given that effective measures are taken that end ongoing and current harms due to intentional and unintentional policies, programs, practices, and procedures, processes that produce disparities as well as racially discriminate outcomes in education, healthcare, housing, economic development, and justice must cease. An official audit must be completed by the city and county of where Asheville and Buncombe County are in compliance and out of compliance with federal and state laws, regulatory bodies, code of conduct, court orders, and consent decrees. An audit would allow for the acceptance of guarantees that the cessation has actually occurred. The verification of facts/data that are publicly disclosed would be a part of such an audit. Future harm or threats to the safety and interests of African Americans must be prevented, and any violation must be prosecuted. Furthermore, it is recommended that the city of Asheville and Buncombe County must promote and enforce codes of conduct and ethical norms as found in federal law, state statutes, and local ordinance, as well as accreditation agencies and other regulatory bodies. It is also recommended that ongoing measures be taken to create and/or strengthen the following: confidence building between government and African Americans, truth-seeking mechanisms and processes, and timely accountability of the dispensation of these recommendations. Sincerely offered.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if the floor entertain a motion to accept this or adopt this plan and this particular offering, I so move.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Would anyone, is there any comments or anybody want to say anything? All right, so all those in favor?
I actually have two comments.
Oh, well, two comments. Sorry.
Criticizing myself. Is that I think that a date should be in here, in terms of when the city will actually submit this information. It can be dragged out for who knows how long. And I think that who collects the data, should be scrutinized. I wonder about our willingness to accept critical data from the very people whom we are suspecting of having perpetrated violations. So, those are my two comments.
Would you offer those as friendly amendments?
I don't know how to word, I don't know how to word it, but I will.
I'll accept it as said.
Thank you.
And I'll second it behind you.
Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to offer a comment also, just real quickly, because this is a really big step for this commission, and I want to be able to facilitate the movement of this recommendation on to the city and county government. So I want to be able to offer that as a reminder. The role of the commission is to put forth recommendations that are then, as I understand city and county government, to be received by governing bodies and adopted by the governing bodies. So these recommendations are going to be offered in order to do that. And I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you.
Okay, awesome. And I'm here to help facilitate that process.
Thank you.
Okay.
Tiffany?
This is a question, not a comment. I'm just speaking in terms of looking at a citywide and countywide audit. Would it be necessary for us to give examples of maybe other places that have effectively done it? And I'm only saying that because sometimes we find ourselves in the weeds because no one else has done it yet. So just wanted to throw that out there.
What I could offer here in terms of examples, because this is a new process, I think that, for example, there are multiple municipalities that have explored diversity, equity, and inclusion policies that go on a citywide scale. Buncombe County, I believe, is one of those. And so at that level, do we accept that as an audit? You know what I mean? Do we accept that type of policy development and creation? Or do you want to research other cities, municipalities across the country that have done something deeper than that or something broader, you know what I mean? So I think that's what I would offer there.
And this isn't an equity audit. We're talking something deeper, right?
Right, that's
So
what I
this is
understand.
excellent work, thank you.
Dee?
I just have a question and a point of information. When you're talking about an audit, there are two kinds usually. There's a performance audit and there's also a financial audit. It is usually expected that, as Einstein said, no problem can be solved with the same level of consciousness that created it. If you go into a city government, of course, you can extract and request data as we have done in the past, but if you make recommendations, it should be predicated upon something other than hunches, intuition, and conversation. So the request for data ordinarily should come from outside of the government, from an independent body. And if it has to be subcontracted out by the contractor, that would be my preference as to it being produced by city and county government. Because the county has already admitted that they have zero data. That's just a comment. Y'all can take any action you want to take, but basically, if you're talking about audits, you're usually talking in terms of a financial audit or a performance audit, and or both. And I mean, so.
Any other comments? So we have a motion with the amendment, and the second. So all those in favor, do we want to do a roll call vote on this or just,
Could we come back just for 1 minute?
Yes.
I'm curious about what Dee was saying, the two types of audit, and whether or not we should take a deeper dive into what she's saying before we vote, before we move forward, and take a look at how we will derive the data, because it does have the feeling of, if we get it from the city, it's a classic case of a fox guarding the hen house. And so how, if she has recommendations of maybe where we could, outside group, a third party that we could reference, or something of that nature, that we could call upon to help extract that data.
In other words, if you're trusting the public information process and a FOIA request in and of itself, I would think that a subcontractor or the contractor could subcontract it out to get individual data analysts, mathematicians, and other folk in there to extract this data. The template is already, basically, you have to trust the public information that's coming out of a FOIA request. It is public information. They do have it, whether or not they gleaned it or put it in a manageable form for us to understand. We know from requesting information from the city that they are duty bound by open meetings laws and information laws, Freedom of Information Act, to provide this information as truthfully as it can be. My question is that, like for instance, what the city outreach coordinator put in her note to us about data, they pretty much say we'll provide qualitative data, not quantitative data. You have to understand the difference. I don't know if the attorney is willing to speak to this, either one of them, but you have to be able to prove disparity. I guess I'm just concerned that we make recommendations without data. We're gonna have just a lot of empty conversation. So, I mean, it's up to y'all, what y'all wanna do, but I'm just not used to making decisions without data anyway. And if you make recommendations, how are these gonna be applicable? We already know that we do have disparity in certain areas. There are statutes, both federal and state, that talk about civil rights. And one of the impetuses we could have is that if we show disparity by data, then we can ask for a point of correction, and it can be enforceable legally, because there are civil rights laws. And that's the leverage that we need to use. So,
Yeah. And so, that's what this, recommendation is to get that point of data and the man, the audit, in so many words, let's recommend the audit. So, that's what this is, exactly,
I just wanted
that will
to
get us.
understand and make sure that that was
Yeah,
what we were interested in equally as a group.
yeah. Any more comments? All right, we have a motion with an amendment and, a second. Do you want me to do a roll call vote? Okay.
You got the friendly amendments in.
Yeah, and we have the amendments in there. All right, so the motion is to approve the stop harm.
One second.
Oh, sorry.
So how did the amendments get in there, like, y'all get ready to vote, and there were amendments to you?
Yeah, I was about to read it out with the amendment. So they amended it up here. Dr. Mullins made an amendment to his own.
Okay, I have one more thing, like, is there a way to make sure that the company that comes in is like a black company? Cause like, part of the reparations is gonna be paying this company, and we shouldn't be paying other,
Okay, I think the attorney wanna say something.
Can you all hear me, or do you need me to go to the mic?
We hear you, we hear you.
All right, I'm pretty loud, I know. So excellent question. I'm just going to respond to that. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer those as well. So all public governments, and that includes Buncombe County as well as the city of Asheville, are governed by state statutes which tell us how we have to go about what we call procurement. That's anytime we have a public contract, whether it's the person catering these things or someone who's performing an audit. There are big limitations on us about utilizing race as one of the factors in determining who we're allowed to contract with. We can do certain things, and we have implemented processes at the city which allow us to take that into consideration on certain kinds of contracts. This is one area where we have a little more restriction, but we have a process by which we require, through our equity and inclusion department, minority and women contractors to be sought out as part of that process. So we have an active process to try to ensure that we're getting those potential players inside the realm of possibilities. We can't guarantee at the end of the day, in particular, either women or minority-owned business is going to receive that contract, because at the end of the day, we're governed by what the state tells us we have to do in terms of making contract decisions. But we do have a process in place to try to advance equity and inclusion in our contracting process, and that's across the board.
Can you just read out the amendments?
Yes.
Just the amendments that were added.
In your copy, it seems appropriate at the end for the timely, there are 3 bullets at the end, just above sincerely offered. It says timely accountability of the dispensation of these recommendations. The date is to be provided by the offices affected. The paragraph above, here, it's the second bold-faced paragraph. It's in bold print. An audit would allow for acceptance of guarantees that the cessation actually occurred. Verification of facts and data that are publicly disclosed will be part of such an audit. These facts and data will be collected by a body to be determined by, Brad, I've lost your phrase that you said.
Probably one that is determined by an open procurement or contracting process. Brad, I don't know, you're the
That's
director.
what I said, I don't know.
I would say the language we use in North Carolina is a competitive procurement process.
Yes.
And that is, again, a third party, not being performed by the entities themselves.
So there was 3 amendments?
There was two. One on the date to be provided by the office affected, and then above the audit, it will include a phrase that says that the facts and verification of facts / data that are publicly disclosed will be part of an audit that is done by a competitively procured procurement process, as we talked about. And I'll phrase that correctly.
Madam Chair, I procurement will come in, or when those, or is incremental time limits, something that would specify when we are to expect some type of results.
And that's the timely accountability of dispensation of these recommendations.
I would like to see that taken a step further, say within 6 months or within so many, give us a timeline when we expect something, not keep pushing it out.
I don't know about 6 months, I mean, you really have to give time for everything, the
Whatever
process.
you tell me, just
But
tell
for
me
the
when.
Well, I don't want a specific date, I want to say something to an appropriate time or something, because if you put a real date on something.
Can I say this as you're saying that?
Yeah.
I appreciate exactly what you're saying, but as an airborne qualified soldier, I know where the drop zone is. I can't say jump out when you expect to get there, because I expect to land at a certain point. They told Dr. King and all the followers during that time frame, with all deliberate speed. It is still deliberate and it hadn't happened. So tell me when it's supposed to happen, and then we can pivot from that point. That's why I say give me 6 months or give me a year.
How about if we were to say, well, and this might be being a bit ambitious, but let's say 90 days, and then we'll review it in another 90 days, and that way we have to put pressure on them along the way. Now, that might be completely unrealistic to say 90 days. And
That's a great milestone though, but you got something to pivot off of.
And that's kind of what I'm trying to say. And then from there, if it turns out to be, as she's saying, more like 6 months to a year, well, at least we're involved in the process.
And we
got
see
our
it
finger
happen.
kind of on the pulse of it, and we're trying to move it along, and we're involved in it as it goes.
I think the attorney want to say something else.
Can I
Okay.
ask the question?
Yeah. What?
I think this get way too serious here for just a recommendation.
No, but it's a recommendation.
I mean, for this for immediate action.
Yeah.
I think that, we just get way out of too serious to me, that's just to me. For what, we keep asking questions, we keep answering. Please, let's take a vote.
Okay, I think Brad wanted to say something, and then.
Let say something, didn't you say?
Just as a recommendation for the commission, in a way that this sort of thing is often done, and I say this as not an expert in auditing. And I say that because I don't know exactly how long this particular, or an audit of this nature will take. So it would be very difficult for me to assign a date. But what is often done is we ask, as part of that procurement process, for that outside auditor to tell us how long it will take, so that that is not dictated by the city or the county, but by the auditing process. And then we can report that back to this group, and as well as including it on future agendas for regular updates as information is available.
Thank you.
So the amendment could be that a timeline is provided by the external auditor and reported to the commission.
Okay, we'll be right there real quick.
Okay, gotcha.
The timely accountability of the dispensations and recommendations and data provided in future agendas for regular updates.
What is regular?
Monthly.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, I call for the vote.
All right, so we're gonna have to do a roll call vote.
Okay, let's go.
All right. Dwayne Barton. Oh, you already said it.
Come on.
You said yes? All right. Renata Conyers. Christopher Gordon.
Yes.
Roy Harris.
Yes.
Joyce Harrison.
Yes.
Sandra Jackson.
Yes.
Dewana Little, yes. Tamari Macon.
Yes.
Bobette Mays.
Yes.
Glenda McDowell.
Yes.
Dwight Mullen.
Yes.
Mildred Nance, Bernard Oliphant.
Yes.
Thomas Priester.
Yes.
Dwayne Richardson.
Yes.
Eric Robinson.
Yes.
Tamar Miller. Yes. D. Williams.
Yes.
MZ Yehuda.
Yes.
Keith Young.
Yes.
So the recommendation has passed and will.
Hold on. Oh, got one first.
Oh, I didn't see you had Kim. Okay. Kim Jones. Sorry, that was terrible. But, so the recommendation has been approved and it will, with the amendments, we'll be going to city and, county commission, city council and county commissions. Thank you all for that.
Madam Vice Chair,
Yes.
we have two new people here. I have no.
Oh, yes, let me, yeah.
I mean, you call their name in the roll call. I'm looking at going, who are these two?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, George, that was our first point of new business.
Okay.
That was our first point of new business.
Okay.
Two new commissioners, Eric Robinson, Tamara Miller. Please, you're welcome, and I'm thankful for your support here. We are looking at, I don't know if it's called promotion, at the ascension.
There you go, ascension.
Dwayne Richardson,
Yeah,
from alternate to full commission member.
thank you.
Welcome.
Yes, welcome. According to the surveys, consistently, 1, 2, 3 people, depending on which survey you're looking at, have said halfway through the meeting, please do a bathroom break, or stand, etc. Let's do a bathroom break. We're at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
Can you only do this in 5 minutes?
It is 6:55 now.
So it's 6:55, we will reconvene at 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
Moving right along. Moving right along. Let's go.
Congratulations. Right, 7:05. I got to go.
Y'all, let's go.
Shall we reconvene? Let's reconvene.
Hey, we want to start the meeting. Hi.
All right, so let's get started. We are under new business, item B. I'm going to keep this brief so that we can move on to our information about community engagement and data, which I know that you're interested in hearing about, but I did want to talk a little bit about the IFA meeting schedules. 2023 schedules have been provided to you all. It's in your packet at the end. It is on a horizontal page, so you can take a look at the IFA meeting schedules. They are all laid out. They're also going to be added to the project website. I do want to mention those locations are on there. Dates, times, locations are all available. So I wanted to just share that publicly with you all. In terms of the structure, there's going to be some more information that's going to be shared in January. Not in January, but leading up to our next meeting in January. New information that's going to be shared about our project timeline. It was briefly mentioned at our November meeting that our transition period, because we have transitioned project managers, we are also looking at making some updates to our project recommendation process and timeline as well. And so because we've just been moving things around, we want to make sure that we're in a settled place before we introduce any new information. And that's what I wanted to do for you all. So we're not presenting that information today, but you will have it so that you can have those discussions in your IFAs that are meeting in December so that you can meet and speak about that. And as far as the project timeline, what you're going to see is a difference in how the recommendations are submitted and also the information being provided in your IFAs. Like, for example, how to connect certain recommendations and ideas and flesh out project ideas, guiding questions, really going off of the work that you're already doing in your IFAs, and how to connect the data that we're getting from the city and county back to those recommendation ideas. So we're going to be providing more structure, more guidance that your facilitators are going to present to you. And that information is going to be shared with you directly after this meeting. So that's what I wanted to say, talking about the structure. Structure is the same. You'll meet as a group in your groups. Schedules are available. And that's all I have. And we'll move on to our communication and engagement tools discussion that's going to be presented to you all by the City of Asheville and Buncombe County Communication and Public Engagement teams. There is also an accompanying document that goes with this. And what that looks like is a memo. It is a memo that has been provided to you all. And I want to invite some of the team members if they want to go over this memo and talk about outreach and engagement project support.
Actually, we're gonna have Leonard Jones come up and talk about our proposal first.
All right, we're going to have Leonard Jones come up and present information about project support and proposals.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Leonard Jones. I'm part of Buncombe County's Communication and Public Engagement Department with, as I said, with Buncombe County. And we're excited about this new collaboration proposal with Soku Coleman in the Asheville's Writers in Schools. For decades of experience, they have decades of experience in publishing, building community-driven initiatives, and working with Black youth and creative professionals and staff, independent contractors, and program participants. And their goal is really to tell the story of the reparation process here in Buncombe County and Asheville. And so they will be documenting the actual work that y'all doing along with youth, and also creating and publishing a unique and relevant content around what you're doing. And so I just wanted to introduce Soku Coleman to kind of give you more information about Asheville's Writers in School, but we just wanted to present this proposal that we had to kind of how do we tell the story? How do we capture what you're doing? This is a historic moment here for Asheville and Buncombe County, and also just that unique aspect of having kids involved in this process to learn and share on this experience. And so, Mr. Coleman.
Thank you. So, as Leonard said, my name is Sekou Coleman, and I'm the director of Asheville Writers in the Schools and Community. We are a North Carolina nonprofit that has been around since 2011. Some of you may know me. I've worked with some of y'all in the community. Some of you may know one of our co-founders, Tamiko Ambrose. Some of you may know some of the programs that we've operated, including Word on the Street, which has been around the community since 2016, as well as Family Voices, which was recently featured on Blue Ridge Public Radio, and Storycraft and other projects that we're doing. Before I talk a little bit about how we got into this space, I just want to share a little anecdote about our young people. Several years ago, I was across the street. Many of y'all were in the room as well when the commissioners were deciding to vote on whether or not they were going to accept the Isaac Coleman initiative. And so there was public comment. And some of you might remember that there was a little video that was shown by some young people, and they interviewed some folks. I think Dwayne was interviewed in there, and a few other folks were interviewed in the video, just to kind of give a perspective from the young person's perspective of what it's like to live in Asheville and why an initiative like the Isaac Coleman Initiative was such a significant need for our community at that time. One of the young men who who was responsible for making the film, after it had been screened to the commissioners, he essentially said, "Now y'all know y'all just need to stop playing around and give us this money with all the money you get from the hotels that you're putting up every other week." Out of the mouths of babes, right? But there's a realness, there's a rawness, there's a frankness that comes from the viewpoint of young people as they're learning about these experiences, as they're documenting these experiences. Starting in 2016, we created a space for young people to come together and do these kinds of things. And that was what Word on the Street led to becoming. Now we're in a position through working with the CAPE team to create a new team of young people that will be working to document the work that y'all are doing over the next couple of years. And to talk a little bit more about what that's going to look like, I'd like to invite Elizabeth Garland, who works with us as our coordinator of our artist residency programs, and will also be project managing this piece of a youth documentary team to celebrate and highlight what's going on.
I'm really excited to be here. I've worked with youth for quite some time, and one thing that I really value is that one young person said to me at one point, you know, you're like a teenage translator, and I really didn't understand what that meant, but it was like, you know, taking time, listening, slowing down, creating space to hear our young people share what they want to see in their community. And I know that from just some of the things that you all have covered, youth voices are extremely important to be part of this process. So with the documentation team, I will be leading, not leading, but really working with young people who are interested in journalism, social impact, inclusion, their community, so a wide range of interests, and also content creation. So What we will be doing is we will have an orientation process where we will explain what they will be doing and gathering ideas. And then we will also be looking at really interviewing and documenting some of the stories that are happening with this commission. So we are really excited. Again, I'm working with, not leading these young people. So we will definitely have more information and be reaching out to you because we want to know why you're here, why you're in these spaces, and to have a dialogue where it's back and forth. It's not just one-sided, so you can hear from the young people as well. So that's what I'm doing. We will be working with some amazing videographers to help really coexist with our young people and capture what they're looking to do. So that's who I am. I'm Elizabeth Lachey Garland, and I'm gonna pass it back over to Leonard.
All right, thank y'all both. I'll now pass it off to Lillian, and I believe Dawa Hitch, their executive director. Lillian is with Buncombe County's Communication and Public Engagement, as well as Dawa Hitch is with the city of Asheville. And so as they mentioned, you have a memo in your packet, which outlines around community engagement as well as communications. And if you have any questions, they're here to answer.
I just want to clarify, I'm sorry that you don't have their proposal in advance, but it is not an item that we need y'all to vote on. It's currently in progress. The contract is underway within Buncombe County, and so we'll be working with them. So it's not an item that you need to take any action on, but we'll simply move forward with on our end to help facilitate for the commission. We thought perhaps as a result of the discussion around the communications work that this group is going to be doing, that there might be some follow-up questions around outreach and engagement, because those are kind of natural progressions. We put that memo in your packet for you. You don't have to ask us any questions, but Dawa and I are both here to talk about what our teams can help provide to this commission when you're ready to ask for that in terms of both qualitative and quantitative outreach and engagement.
Who's debriefed prior to the submission as you put out the information? So is there any information that comes to the commission saying, okay, here's what we've accumulated, here's what we have, and here's what we're gonna put out? Or is it just that through Buncombe County, Asheville City, the decisions come from you, it goes out, and we just see it as it unfolds?
One of the things that we have talked about in improving the synergy between the organizations is in that meeting with the chair and vice chair, finding out what that message is that they really want to make sure that the community takes away from these meetings. Each individual meeting, the message may change, so that our respective teams can help amplify that message for the commission.
And just to be clear, this is the voice of the commission by way of AWITS and Asheville Buncombe.
Yes, if you're talking specifically about the Asheville Writers in Schools, I'll let them share information if you have thoughts that you want to share on that. Sorry, Sekou, to put you on the spot.
Yeah, so what we're doing and what Liz will be supporting is a parallel process, which is observatory and documentation only. It will take form of, little podcasts or mini videos that might appear online in a virtual space for folks to access and be updated, sort of a way for us to tell our story and not allow others to tell the story for us. So as Liz mentioned, folks will be in contact with y'all to meet either through the IFA groups or maybe one-on-one or in small groups to kind of talk about what are the stories underneath each of the meetings, what are the stories in the communities, what's the underlying pieces here. And that will be in addition to what the city and the county are doing around messaging from these specific meetings. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. And I'm definitely a fan of AWITS, so thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I do have one. I see where you have listed some of the community meetings.
Yes, ma'am.
And the faith leaders gatherings.
Yes.
How do you intend to reach those faith leaders?
Leonard. Leonard leads our faith leaders group and does a great job.
And so with the Faith Leaders Group, I've been with Buncombe County for about 2 years now. And so we have a list of emails and a listserv that we reach out to on a monthly basis just to keep them updated on current initiatives and programs that's happening with Buncombe County. And so as information come out monthly, we kind of keep them updated since there's a current initiative around reparation.
I work for 80 African-American churches from Hayesville down to Charlotte.
Oh.
And especially in center here in Asheville. So it would be helpful if we, be able to, because they coordinate, they have a collaboration called Eagles Wings Community Development Corporation, it's Economic Development Corporation as well. So we have representatives from most of the black churches in, just about all of them in Asheville and Western North Carolina. So
I can reach out to you to see who you have on your list and kind of cross-reference it with mine to see many of the churches around here. I do have on my list those pastors as well, so they receive a monthly email.
They're audience for us.
Yeah. And so I can add you to the list as well and keep you updated on those emails.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dowa Hitch. I might jump in just real quick to make sure that everybody's got a good understanding of the breadth of resources that you have here. So in addition to reporting on what's happening within the commission, when you all get to the point where you're ready to engage with the community, those resources that both the city and county have, to include the ones that you just mentioned and the ones that are listed there in the memo, those are available to you. So we just wanted you to have those as you all are working towards a place where you might be engaging with the community. You might want to invite the community in to give their input on where you all are. All of those resources are available to you all, and you all will lead with what that message is that's going out, or what that ask is that's going out to those groups. So it's both kind of in the storytelling realm, and then as we get into engagement, if that's a choice that you all would like to make to have those resources at your hands, then we're there to support you all in doing that.
So I got a question. So our meetings are public, and we have repeatedly had that conversation around community participation in these meetings, as well as IFA meetings. So like when we have these meetings, because this agenda and all of the things is public and y'all have access to that as well, is this being promoted to the community through this group already? I'm just trying to figure out like if that's something we need to do separately, or like how that works.
So I would say we can always add to the list. I think our list right now is about 430 people who have subscribed as being interested to reparations, or who have self-identified as BIPOC. We've got a number of lists, contact lists, that we invite the public in to identify themselves as being interested in that area. So folks that have subscribed to the Reparations Commission, folks that have self-identified as BIPOC, or there's a number of other youth. I know we're also sending updates about reparation to youth. So all those managed lists, we're proactively sending information out to them, and we're about at 430 on the city side of things right now.
Question.
Go ahead.
I'm a little slow sometimes, but how do you all define reparations in Asheville, not in the United States, in Asheville, and who's eligible for it?
So that would be a question that we're working with you to answer. Your definition of reparations and who qualifies for those are what we will amplify through our communications and outreach.
What is being put on the street right now?
Right now, we're sharing the information about the work of the commission and what decisions are made. Certainly, the very first meeting that you had when you made that decision, we were sharing that out, working with our local media partners, trying to make sure that whether the questions were coming through the faith community, through traditional media outlets, new media outlets like social media, we were sharing the information that's coming from the body of work that this commission is producing.
And I'm might just add that it's really, at this point in time, it's very basic. Actions that were taken based on what the agenda is what we're pushing out. So it's just a record of the actions that were taken for anybody that wants to follow along. And there's been a lot of intention put behind having the Reparations Commission lead in that area. So back to making sure that there's vetting of what the perception is. That's a really important piece of that. So it's really, at this point in time, it's more procedural. These were the things that were on the agenda. These were the actions that were taken. And if you have any questions, then you can send them in through the email link, and then that goes to the project manager and the staff that's supporting the commission.
Because so much of what we're doing is procedural, we thought it was really imperative to bring a group to organically and holistically tell the story of reparations in Asheville and Buncombe County in a way that we simply can't because we are the government agencies associated with it. There's more latitude, more creativity, more authenticity, working with another group to do that for us.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for y'all's time tonight. If y'all have any more questions for them, Dawa Hitch and Lillian Govis, I think that's right, is on here, and Asheville Writers in School does have a website, so y'all welcome to reach out. But let's move on to the next agenda item.
All right, the next item is an update to the data process, and this is in direct response to, this process. We need an update on data. You all have been, working towards this, so we wanted to provide you an update. We're going to keep this pretty brief and high level, but just know that we are working on it. We're working with both the city and the county to provide updates. There is a document that accompanies this item also in the agenda, and we actually have Raphael from Buncombe County. He'll introduce himself just to walk us through this process as well.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here at my first Reparations Commission. I'm the Director of Strategy Innovation for Buncombe County. So among many other things, I am in charge of all data analytics for the county. My counterpart at the city is a gentleman named Eric Jackson, who is not here today, but knows I'm here, and we've talked a lot about this. So want to give you kind of what we've been doing since probably September is working with DetEquity's project managers to develop a workflow for how data can get processed from when you all during your IFA meetings decide that there's a piece of data or a data source of information that you want to how we work on that. So the process is that IFA lead, the project manager from the group, takes that, looks through it, understands what's going on, and then they submit it through a form to the city and county staff. At that point, what we do is we try to assess, is it a data piece? Is it something that we actually are able to collect? Is it a city piece of data, a county piece of data, a school's piece of data? We assign it out, and then we work with the project manager, the main project manager now, Christine, who we're really excited to have on board. We've been working with her for a month now, and it's been a really great relationship. We're really excited to have her on board and the energy that she brings. We try to work to collect it, and then we'll come back and work with her to get information back out. That's how it does for like data pieces. Things are like a number in a piece of data. Some of the requests y'all have been related to what are slave codes that are related to education, things like that, which is not really a piece of quantitative numeric data. It's a research piece. So what we're doing is we're working with city and county staff to try to identify who is the right subject matter expert to do that research. My team is a bunch of data analysts. The city's team related to this is a bunch of data analysts, so we're trying to find subject matter experts to work that. The city and the county received our first batch of data requests on November 5th. Thus far, we have received 69 individual data requests. On the county side, I'm happy to say that every single data request has been assigned to a team member, and I have staff working on each single one of them. Additionally, we have met with both Asheville City Schools and Buncombe County Schools and their data leads, and we're actually working to see what we're able to generate on their side. Our goal is to come back in January with Christine and be able to share kind of a timetable of here's when all these data points we'll have, here's the format we'll have. Also want to say that one of the challenges that we have found in this work and similar work is a lot of time, good data only goes back so far. A lot of data requests date back to 1900 and to 1950. We're trying to tell a story, correct? Unfortunately, the data a lot of times doesn't go as far back as we would like. So we are actually trying to understand how far we can go back and what we can collect. We're also actively working with our project managers and our community groups to understand, are there nonprofits in the community that have done this research before that we can utilize and leverage them as well. So that's where we are on the data side. We are really committed to getting you all the information that you need, and we'll be actively working with the project managers on this. And I'm happy to take any questions you may have. Yes, sir.
How do we contact you? What's your number?
So the best way to approach is to go through the project managers. So contact Christine, and then she'll reach out to me.
When I shoot at something, I don't shoot around. I want to shoot at you. How do I contact you?
The instructions I have received from city and county leadership is to have data requests go through Christine. Christine filters them, and then I respond to what she needs.
All right.
We'll make sure we get them from each IFA leader who's been so supportive of this process so far. These data requests are coming from the IFA groups. So they're coming from the grassroots up, and that's how we're making sure that the city and county government are getting those requests. And I will say, even though the data requests were entered officially in November, they were requested from the groups a lot earlier than that, and they do realize that. It's just a matter of getting them in and assigning them all, and getting them assigned and bringing attention to them. So we're working on them as fast as we can so we can apply them back to the recommendations at hand.
Thank you. Raphael, one of the things that we asked for and we found out through talking to your purchasing director too, is that you probably don't have a database set up to tell the story, if you will, of procurement and contracting opportunities that have been afforded to African American businesses. Will that be a process or a template set up to where we don't have to reinvent the wheel anymore in Buncombe County, much like Asheville Cities is? It's a template worth probably replicating, unless y'all just want to, start something different, altogether different. Basically, in the different areas of procurement and contracting, by racial groups that the SBA recognizes, and ethnic groups, and also geographic, where these groups come from. A lot of times, we'll look at the data that we have happened to capture in the last 4 or 5 years. Most of the procurements have occurred outside of Asheville in the Charlotte area. So, what are the plans, or do you have that down enough right now to let us know, as far as procurement and contracting specifically?
There's 69 data requests ranging from births to procurement to very specific school data. I'm not the data analyst, so I can't give you a specific answer on any particular one. I will follow up with the data team, but I will follow up with the procurement team at the county to understand our current data limitations and our plans, and I'll get that information to Christine. That's how I'm going to get you the most accurate information.
Right.
I've been following Dogwood Health Trust the last 4 or 5 months, and I noticed that they put out a lot of data. Now, they cover a 19 county area, and I'm sure that Buncombe County is part of where do they ever come to the city and the county to ask for information? Or?
We work very actively with Dogwood. We get information from Dogwood, and we provide information to Dogwood. So we are working with them, and one of the things we're trying to do is understand what do we have internally and what do organizations like Dogwood and others have. So that's part of it, is we're trying to identify partners. For example, the criminal justice data has been requested. We don't own any of that data, but we do know who in the community does, and we're reaching out to them and trying to receive that information from them. So Dogwood is among a long list of organizations in the community in the region that we are actively reaching out to try to get information.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
Dwayne?
You were mentioning that the research that you've done around the questions of slavery, you've only been able to go back approximately to about 1900. Through personal research, I'm aware that the first two recorded slaves that were sold, or however you want to phrase that, was the gentleman named Jim and a lady named Sue. And I'm just curious, does your research span beyond Asheville, as it was incorporated into a town and into Morristown, which was the predecessor to Asheville?
So I believe I may have misspoken. What I meant going back to 1900, 1950 was what I was referring to was not specifically slave data, but for example, one of the data requests came on the health side was to look at disparities by race in maternal outcomes from delivery going back to 1900. And the point I was trying to make, and I apologize if I did not make it well, was that a lot of times that data of the maternal health impacts in the birth records and information from Mission Health, for example, we don't have access to, or it doesn't exist back to 1900. So a lot of times what we're trying to do is say, the commission has requested data going back to 1950, data going back to 1900. Part of our role is trying to understand how far back can we go and provide you the accurate data. The information about slave codes and slave information, that's something we are starting on and trying to work with the project managers to better understand how to get that data. But I don't think we've quite sunk our teeth into that quite yet.
Like I say, it is, you can't go back to mid to late 1700s. And I think that any information that we could get relative to the history of it would be relevant to the commission at some point.
We'll do it the best we can. I know that through our register of deeds, we do have some pretty good information, so we're working with that office quite actively on this.
Thank you so much for coming to give us this update. And we definitely look forward to starting in January with the even better update and a timeline for when we can receive all of this data that we have been requesting.
All right, y'all have a great night. Thank you.
You too. So, the next item on the agenda is the impact focus areas update. And so I would like to start with the economic development group. They have a recommendation, and so I want to make sure that they have time to make that recommendation to the commission. That we will consider for, it's not for vote this session, it will be for vote next session. And so if y'all have questions or want to know more about the recommendations that's been presented, please try to reach out to the members of that focus area group, and please attend the focus area group meetings, and y'all have the times too. So, economic development, I think Dwayne Barton and the rest of the economic development group will be starting this session off. Tara?
I was hoping Dwayne was gonna, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can. Dee, you want to start?
Just briefly, this is, I just want to say that one of the things that we try to do is try to help existing community plans out. You don't need to start doing something new when these folks have been at this for a long time, from Burton Street to Shiloh to East End. So one of the things that we noted was that people learn about businesses in their own communities. This is where we pick knowledge of this up. One of the things that predicated this was we sent some information about black business development and formation rates. For instance, in fiscal year 2018, we talk about African American businesses. They did 0.75% of all procurement and contracting with the city of Asheville. And that spend, money that was spent, was $95 million. And we did 0.75%, or $206,000, a little and some change. So that's not much. 2017, it was 1/3 of 1%. That's not a whole lot, and that spend was around $93 million. 2015 and 16, it was 0.75%. It's never been 1% in the most recent history. And this spend is always mostly over $90 million a year. So we see that the idea of a business incubator, startup businesses and scaling those businesses up based on the data. And this is data that is on the city's letterhead that we asked for and got, thanks to City Manager Campbell and Brenda Mills and some other folks with the City of Asheville. So we know that there is a disparity, and it proves it. So with that, we want to support business incubators for all of our still intact black neighborhoods. Dwayne is going to give y'all a template for how to start one. What we'd like to see is Dwayne get funded and start a due diligence process. We'll work with him on refinement of everything from financials to space to whatever. And then that template be used in all of the other neighborhoods like East End, like Shiloh, like Southside when the time comes. So I'll cease, and I just want to thank everybody. I want to know everybody on the Economic Development Work Group. Can you please raise your hands so they can see everybody that's involved and put this work in? So I'll stop and go ahead, Dwayne, knock it out the ballpark.
All right. Well, thank you, Dee, for that. She said mostly everything I was going to say to y'all. But what I do want to say is that we have a lot going for us as a community. Prior to the reparations, we have a number of policies, equity and inclusion policies on the books that we could use as a guide to launch this commission. We also have a lot of economic development happening in and around our historically African American neighborhoods. One example is this I-26 project. That's $1 billion highway project that's going to come through our community to affect Hillcrest and Burton Street and others. $54 million of that project has to go to black contractors. How do we leverage these opportunities, these policies, to put our community in position to benefit from it? And the most powerful thing we have working for us as a community is existing neighborhood plans that go back almost 10 years and other initiatives from Hillcrest to Klondike. Grassroots initiatives that the community has already created when they had the capacity and they sat on the shelf and collected dust. So we don't have to start A in the alphabet. We're on P. So how does this board, this 22-member board, start coalescing and coming together around, let's say, the business incubator? For example, on the spot we want to do over there on Burton Street that's in directly response to this highway expansion that's about to run through there. We want to have a commercial kitchen, hot tub, sauna. It's a healing, it's a health and business incubator. We want to have a youth-led credit union. How amazing would that be? So we want to propose this business incubator, and then we want the other focus groups to come in and say, okay, we the education, how will we play, what role will we play in the business incubator? In the criminal justice, what role will we play in the business incubator? For health, how do we, and then we forge this across the board relationship where we're interlocking and connecting our efforts under one umbrella. And then that is the method that what we create at this committee and how we connect to each other. Right now it's like the wild, wild west of health. It's like all these activities happening around reparations and helping black folks, ain't nobody being held accountable for their hustle. We are the Reparations Commission, we have to set that standard, and the standard should come from us. From the 22 members who was chosen here, we supposed to be connecting with each other. It's overdue. And we supposed to be connecting these opportunities in our skill set, and then we create the pipeline of support and the platform of practice, and we can reach this reparations in the sky. Now, if anybody want to see any of these initiatives and projects, I brought them here tonight. I dust them off and I have them. We don't have to start new. We have it from the community, grassroots initiatives, policies, and economic opportunities to make the hustle happen for real. I'm gonna stop there, and I had cue cards, and I didn't even read from the jump.
I talked
Any
to
questions?
Mr. Barton earlier today, and something that I know he wanted to bring out was there are groups that are kind of sprouting up around the Reparations Commission that are kind of creating their own agendas, and we need to, as the commission, kind of be a regulatory body, if you will, to make sure that those other groups that are sprouting up are somehow accountable back to the body that's been given the authority to pursue it, and that is the Reparations Commission. I don't know exactly how we do that, and Mr. Barton has some ideas about that, but I know that's something that he wanted to include, and that is just as a commission, us staying aware and involved with the other movements that are coming, and making sure that we can't hamstring them, but at the same time, making sure that they're kind of working through us to accomplish their goals, and that we're not all disparate out here trying towards the same thing, where we would have greater strength as a collective body. And that was something he mentioned to me today.
Okay, what's the recommendation?
Oh, we're not making decisions.
Oh, I thought you said we were coming back next week.
No, so the decision will come next week, so we do need to clarify the recommendation for the
Okay.
record, that's what
Okay.
you're asking.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to
So, with the Economic Development Group, like to clarify the recommendation so that we can, that they can consider it. So what y'all will be getting is the same document similar to what, y'all just viewed with Dr. Mullen's presentation. That will be coming out to the full commission so that y'all have time to read it and, you know what I mean, and be prepared to, but y'all also had a lot of opportunities to engage with that group, outside of this meeting.
I'm sorry to cut you off. There will also be more opportunities for y'all to work in your IFA groups to develop those recommendations further so that you can connect it to the data, you can flesh it out, get feedback from legal so we can talk about the, barriers, challenges, feasibility, things like that nature. So all of that is going to be put into a structure for the IFAs to move forward.
And I do want to say that I put it out there, the business incubator, we the economic development. How does health come in and plug into that? How does education come in and plug into that? We need to start hammering that out and connecting the dots on what we're supposed to be doing. We don't have to wait. We have, all the resources are here. It's us, the 22 member boards. It's time for us to make the move.
Yes.
So the recommendation is for us to start fleshing out a business incubator project based on the different communities. So I know for sure Shiloh has a community plan, right? Shiloh? Like y'all's community plan for Shiloh area.
We have a
like-
2025 plan.
Yeah, they have a 2025 plan, so every community, every respective black community has a plan for what they wanna see in their community to support the economic growth of their community. Like, we need to really start, like, we wanted to do work, you know what I mean? We really wanted to see action. This is a way for us to really start pulling those things out and looking at those things and really seeing how we can invest in things that are already, already done. They put on a lot of work. There wasn't no overnight process. You know what I mean? To get all of the studies, everything that the city or, you know what I'm saying, the city needed in order for them to even submit those items. That wasn't an overnight process, so how do we invest in that? And I think the Economic Development Group, really is hitting it on the head. Like, we need to really start looking at economic development from the community standpoint. because the community created those, not city, not nobody but the community.
Can I make a comment though?
Yes.
About, as we talk about the different individual communities, they're also different. And say, for instance, with the economic development, if you talk about Shiloh, it's a total residential area. So we would not want to bring businesses into our community because these are homeowners with homes. We don't have apartments, we have homes. And so the people that are there, we're in between Hendersonville Road and on the other side of Sweet Creek Road. So those are the business areas. But to come inside of Shiloh with, that was what our 2025 plan specifically says that we do not want. We want to keep it a residential area and keep it intact so that business, and we have already developed a relationship with the city and the county as to what can come into our neighborhood and how they would have to talk to us before they wanted to do any rezoning or conditional rezoning or whatever. So I think as we start to go into that, you know, Birch Street economics, they want to bring in businesses, they want to do more things. So whenever you start talking about, just remember that even though we are African American neighborhoods intact, but we're not thinking about the same thing. We don't.
Y'all got different things.
So just remember that as you go through to try to develop, however that is that you want to make that. Because Shiloh is we have worked very hard. It was not overnight, like you said. We worked very hard to make sure that we had everything that we needed, and the city was a great help with everything that we had. So.
One more comment. Noting that economic development encompasses everything that we have at this table. When you talk economic development, you're talking childcare, housing, healthcare. You're talking everything in economic development encompasses everything that we're talking about around the table. So we just need to make sure that when we start talking about, you know, the plans that the economic development groups are looking at, that we're looking at everybody as a whole to be a part of it. Okay. I'm coming as an economic development person.
I know. MZ, you had something to say? I'm
Yeah, I'd
sorry.
like to make a motion that in our next meeting, each of the neighborhoods present their plans that have been on the shelves for 10 or more years. I think this is,
It's online. It's online. It's open. It's an open book. It's not hidden. Every neighborhood has its own plan, and it's open. All you do is go look it up.
but can we hear from the commission members that are behind them to talk about them? Are they worth being discussed?
It's not worth being discussed, but we have 2 hours.
And I think that's what the
That's
floor
the
should be for
Yes.
us to discuss what's happening in the communities.
You know, MZ, that it keeps coming up, that 2 hours, just said 2 hours. We talked to legal about this, and if I'm mistaken, please correct me. But as long as we keep the number under quorum, we don't need to have it in a public meeting setting.
Y'all hear? Is that if we keep the number under quorum, under 13, we can have these kinds of prolonged conversations go in any direction we want to without having gone through the public meeting protocol. And one of the ways that we might be able to do that is by Zooming. So if we have a Zoom of 12 people, we can have some really interesting conversations that are small enough where our discussions and information can be passed along without the constraints of this time, of this point. So that's something that I just find it interesting. Yeah. So anyway, just as we talk about these things and we find ourselves pressed with time, it might be a format that we need to parallel.
You should. All right, so Dwayne, in the Economic Development Group, I'm super excited that y'all brought that forth, and I think we should look at each of the community plans and look at, consider y'all's recommendation. And so by the end of this week, y'all will be getting a written recommendation from the Economic Development Group, and it will be for consideration for our next meeting. And so please don't forget to go to the Economic Development IFA meetings if you have questions or want to be a part of this process. I think everybody should want to be a part of this process. It's going to be amazing. And so definitely reach out to the Economic Development IFA. So our next IFA group will be housing. The spokesperson for housing want to speak?
Yeah.
And give an update?
Well, I kind of thought I was in the wrong room, because I have my restrictions on what I'm supposed to be saying. But I am Bobby Mason, I'm the spokesman for the housing. I just asked that the members of the housing group just raise your hand. Raise your hand. There you go. We meet the second Tuesday of each month from 6 to 8 o'clock p.m. at Stevens Lee in the child care development area. We have done work, we realized that it was more complicated. Housing is very different as you start to talk about what it encaptures and what the harm has been done as far as housing, and as you tie into, like Dwayne has said, all the other things umbrellaed together, that housing plays a very major part in what has happened to the harm of our communities and education and all those other things to go. So what we did was we've identified those things and we've talked about them, and what we needed support for. I think we had asked for the city and the county if there was a way that they could give us the data on how many properties that the city and county actually own, so that we could kind of look at that and review it and see what we could do as far as helping ourselves in our communities with those different entities. And we're working well together. We're starting to know each other. We talk to each other. We communicate. I think that what had happened was that we don't have Ty, and Ty was very good, and his directions were what he wanted to do. And Salar came and picked up, and it was like we didn't even realize that we had to start over. But we all are very conscious that we have our own opinions, but we respect each other's opinion. And so whenever we voice on, we said there's no right or wrong. It's just that we talk it out. So we are working, and we've asked for speakers to come into the space coming in January to give us some more ideas of what different things will look like. That's all I have.
Yep, just confirm, and they'll be there next week.
All right, thank you so much, Housing Group and Bobby for presenting. So, I would like to move to criminal justice and the spokesperson for criminal justice. Please present.
Thank you. And Salah is on your agenda. She kindly provided me with her notes. It meets the second Wednesday of each month. It meets at Stevens Lee from 6 to 8 p.m. We do have some recommendations. We did have some data that we reviewed that came from stops by the Ashland Police Department that were derived from the SBI and the Department of Justice in North Carolina. As y'all may know, and probably most of you do, is that we use that database of information along with some civil rights attorneys to invoke written consent to search by the Ashland Police Department. And also that same database and the database that Buncombe County provided to get ban the box enacted by Asheville City, Buncombe County, and Mission Health Systems, the largest employer in Western North Carolina. That is the power of data and what it can do. It can change policy and it can change people's lives. So that's what we're looking forward to. We do have some recommendations and some harms, as well as some of us have turned in some plans and some budgets for some programs that'll look at violence intervention, and also some workforce stuff for folks who've been criminal justice involved. And that's about it. So just looking forward to more data and designing programs that will help people in our community that are very tangible.
Thank you so much, Dee. I'd like to go to the education group. Who is the spokesperson for education?
Cece is the spokesperson, but she's not here, so I will take her place for tonight. I'll start off with everybody, like everybody else did. Can the education focus group please raise their hand? So we've been meeting twice a month. We have a meeting tomorrow night at the YWCA. We've been gathering information. We've heard a presentation from Asheville City Schools about teacher retention and recruiting, and specifically about black teacher recruiting. We've also heard from Asheville City Schools Foundation about their B program, which is a Black Educators of Excellence cohort that they've created, where they're providing funds for advanced degrees, but also providing a forum for black teachers to come together and talk to each other. Let's see, what else have we had? We were hoping to hear from the folks who created the pods, which were very successful during the COVID. They had to cancel because of illness, but hopefully we'll get them back to talk to us about how those were formed and what those can do, how a community came together and sort of put together educational systems for our kids, and see if that's a viable program that we can use going forward. We also are just beginning to look at some immediate harms, and so one of our discussions tomorrow will be a proposal about excessive suspensions of black students and how we might address that immediately. So please come on out tomorrow at the YWCA from 6 to 7:30 and give us your opinion on that. We have a proposal that we'll be discussing there. I think that's about it. I know we're running out of time. Anybody else from my group have anything they want to add?
I want to say something. I know we're running out of time. Let me just say this. I know that you all had the pods during the pandemic, but Project Lighten Up actually did a virtual academy. So don't just remember us, because we actually opened up our church and the kids came and they did. We're not considered pods, but we were like a virtual learning academy. And so as you think about that, and it was a source for parents to be able to go to work, you know, and the kids would be in school. We had a good connection with the school. That was for most of Buncombe County. We did have some Asheville City schools, but I would just say don't forget about.
We'll certainly come to you with some more
When we say
information.
pods, we don't necessarily just mean the pods as it is now, because the pods encompass like multiple, like different organizations, whether it was Project Lighten Up or whoever we supported with the funding. It could have been Christine Avery or YTL. It wasn't just what the pods is now. So we mean mostly black-led organizations under that. That did what you were talking about.
So thank you. Health and wellness. And the spokesperson for health and wellness.
I'm Deanne Braylon Jones. I'll be speaking on behalf of Health and Wellness. I honestly feel like 2 minutes won't. Yes, sorry.
People can't hear you.
Okay. I don't feel like 2 minutes will do the group justice, but we'll try. One of the things that the group has done is develop 8 different recommendation areas. So when we brainstormed, and I see our members, would you raise your hand, please, Dr. Shmari? A couple have already left. We've gotten 8 different areas of recommendations in health and wellness, including the provision of free access to health care. There's sub-recommendations in each of these fields. Eliminating bias and implementing accountability of staff and providers, stopping harms and decreasing barriers related to health and wellness, including supporting Black-owned health centers. There are, again, subcategories of each of these. African American healing spaces, how do we support that as part of our recommendations? African American representation in decision-making processes for health centers. How can we have Black representation across leadership in healthcare and public health arenas? How can we recruit additional healthcare providers who happen to be BIPOC African American? Utilizing city and county to leverage their power, for example, to leverage and incentivize healthcare entities to do right in this space. How do we provide and go after those incentives? And then being able to compensate for resources denied because of racism over time, and funding, training, and educating the community at large about equity, health equity issues within Asheville-Buncombe County. All of these categories have, again, sub-recommendations, and the group has been concentrating on how do we do immediate, short-term, mid-term, and long-term strategies, and having those categorized so that we can look at where the priorities are. That's where we're also looking. We've been meeting every other Tuesday. Tomorrow's the last meeting of 2022. We start back up in January. The other piece is that we are also interested, we've heard the comments about community engagement. So one of the things that our group is trying to do is how do we co-sponsor activities with other organizations. We've talked about and are exploring partnering with RJC to do something out in the community around this so that we can get also community input. We've also talked about having some of our sessions at different community centers. Are we going to Shiloh? Because we've heard that, again, how can we make sure that we have community involvement that are supporting and hearing these recommendations in a greater setting than amongst the commissioners. So that's something that's also been a part of our priorities. Commissioners, is there anything else tomorrow? No. But we will start again in January. Again, we meet about twice a month, every other Tuesday, and we look forward to sharing the rest of our information with all of you all. I'd ask, because 2 minutes is just not enough to do the amazing justice that this work, this group has done. I'd like to be able to see if we can rotate sometimes the reporting, because the first groups normally get 10 to 15 minutes, and then the rest of us have to try to cram it in. And I just think the work is fabulous that they've done. I just want to give them credit for it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, that concludes our IFA report outs. And I am super impressed with all the work that you all are doing. I know outside of this meeting, we do a lot of work. We would normally do a round table, but we won't. Tonight, we're gonna bypass that and let Dr. Munns take over with public comment.
We have one signed up for public comment, Rob Thomas. Rob, oh,
Yeah, you gotta go to the mic. Yes. Oh, while you walking up there, so, each group, did they send me this?
What is that?
The report out minutes for the IFA?
Can you repeat the question?
So, hopefully moving forward, we will be getting the updates that come from the IFA also in writing, so that everyone has a copy of it and so we can all be informed, and have it in the packet. So,
And a format.
Yes. Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that starting in January, there's gonna be a format and structure so that we can strengthen these recommendations and communicate from the IFA to this body, city, county, so that we're all on the same page. So yeah, we're all on the same page, absolutely. We're gonna work on it.
Mr. Thomas?
Oh, this microphone does work. Okay.
Yeah, it does.
So first of all, I'd like to definitely congratulate Sekou Coleman for getting the community engagement contract. They are an amazing organization. I think they're gonna do a really good job. But I wanted to come up here and offer a recommendation myself as far as pertaining to the city. I think that it could be immediate or midterm, but a slavery disclosure ordinance. And what this is and what it does is any business that is looking to contract with the city and they have either profited or benefited off of slavery or the harms named in the resolution, they would have to name that up front. And if they did not, then they could be penalized. Now, there are a variety of ways that this ordinance could be written. I've seen some with no teeth, I've seen some with teeth, but it'd be really good if we could create one with teeth to where if they violate, the proceeds then go to reparations. And it also gives us a leg up when it comes around to look up private businesses to hold culpable for past harms. Another thing that I did want to bring, I wasn't planning to mention this, but I did hear a statement based on other groups doing reparations in the community. And I know that you all have probably heard of the Reparations Stakeholder Authority of Asheville, maybe not, but we're always willing to come and do a presentation. I've been trying to come and do presentations for a while, but there's a few things about it. It is ran and controlled by community members. It is a members-based organization, so that every community member that is a member of it are the individuals that are in control of it. It will not be beholden to any other entity or any individual person, but the actual community members themselves will decide how they want their money dispersed. And it can do things that the city and municipal government cannot, but you all definitely can do things that it cannot do, such as what you're currently doing now with policy. But it can do things that would be declared positive discrimination at the city level. Cam Howard came and talked about it when he was speaking about reparations finance authorities. I've been working with him for a while on creating this and implementing this in our city. And NARC and NCOBRA will actually be coming down here soon to help get it off the ground really good. But I would encourage you all to work with it. It is not in competition with the city. It is not to, quote unquote, make you all look bad or any of that. But like I said, I would love to do a comprehensive presentation on exactly what it is, exactly what it does, so that it dispels the confusion and so that you all know that you have nothing to worry about as far as anybody trying to take control of you all's process. But that's it. I guess that's my 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Rob, thank you. Appreciate it. I have no wrap up. My acknowledgement is to our caterer, Bubba's Barbecue, and my apologies for being 11 minutes over. Your attention is appreciated. We have a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
She said, "I'm so fun." Don't be expecting that.